The Norfolk and Western Railway is famous the world round for their fleet of modern coal-burning steam locomotives which remained in service longer than on any other major American railroad. The N&W's monster articulated locomotives of the 1950s are iconic for good reason. The story of the Norfolk and Western steam fleet didn't start with big malaise, though. Like many railroads, the N&W was often willing to give something a try, even if it seems unusual in hindsight. In 1906 and 1907, the Norfolk and Western was a burgeoning coal railroad working its way westward through the Blue Ridge and Appalachian Mountains in southern Virginia and central West Virginia. At the time, the heaviest freight engines the N&W had were the brand new M-Class 480s. An expansion on the W series of 280s, the M's packed more power into the limited footprint that was dictated by the N&W turntables of the time. An M-Class could put just over 40,000 pounds of tractive effort to the rails. Loaded coal trains coming out of the coal fields of Virginia and West Virginia at the time often saw a pair of M's on the point. There was more to moving coal than just stacking hoppers in the yard in Bluefield and sending the trains eastbound, however. Getting to and from the mines was the first step. Some of these mines had branches and spurs that were steep and winding, beyond the capabilities of a normal rod engine to operate efficiently. As such, in 1907, the Norfolk and Western Railway placed an order with the Lima Locomotive and Machine Company of Lima, Ohio for a 150-ton Shay locomotive that would work the mine branches between Bluefield and Williamson, West Virginia. Built as shop number 1893 and being the 1,332nd Shay locomotive built by the Lima Locomotive and Machine Company, Norfolk and Western number 56 rolled out of the Lima shops on August 27, 1907. The N&W ordered her with a much thicker and heavier frame than what was typically used on Shay locomotives at the time in anticipation of the heavy duties she would undertake. The locomotive entered service out of Bluefield on the Virginia-West Virginia border. The 150-ton, 4-truck Shay could outpull the M-Class locomotives working around her, putting down over 52,000 pounds of tractive effort and weighing in at 336,000 pounds. Today known as the Pocahontas District, the line between Bluefield and Williamson traverses very rich coal fields. Coal mining was the region's cash cow, and mines of all sizes could be found all up and down the hills and valleys of the area. This was perfect territory for a Shay locomotive, which was rated to negotiate a curve so tight it would turn a full 180 degrees in a diameter of only 250 feet. Number 56's ability to negotiate challenging tracks made her a perfect fit for the spurs built to reach these mines between Bluefield and Williamson. Her heavy frames made her a rough-riding locomotive, however, which earned a few complaints from engine crews. As the years went by, however, the coal deposits of the mines on many of these branch lines ran dry, and one by one the spurs were pulled up. Some branch lines remained, but were realigned to be gentler and not as steep. Over the years, fewer and fewer places on the N&W system truly needed a Shay and could be worked by conventional rod engines instead. Eventually, number 56 found herself with no more spurs or branch lines to work. Progress did not stand still as the Sidewinder worked her way up and down the various coal spurs in West Virginia. Only 3 years after the Shay arrived on N&W property, the first 2882 Mallet locomotives entered service. These Y1s could put out 78,000 pounds of tractive effort and effectively replaced the M-Class locomotives as the N&W's heavy freight power. That being said, the Shay was still ranked among the most powerful locomotives on the N&W Railway, and the railroad was not in a hurry to dispose of a perfectly fine, bought and paid for, heavy-duty locomotive. The Norfolk and Western began to experiment with number 56, seeing how she did out on the main line. The locomotive was able to move fairly heavy trains over the main line. However, with a top safe operating speed of about 26 miles per hour and likely cruising much below that, number 56 caused major delays almost every time she was tested out on the mains. The experiment was deemed a failure, and the Norfolk and Western moved the engine around from place to place, seeing if they could find a new niche for her. Among the many places she was tried was the hump yard in Portsmouth, Ohio. The Shay had the power and low speed necessary to get behind a long string of loaded coal hoppers and push them over the yard hump. This was so they could be gravity sorted one or two at a time on the downhill side and be sent on to their final destinations. She was not the only locomotive capable of this duty, however. After several years, number 56's number was changed to 156, though the numbers painted on her headlight remained unchanged. Over the years, the fact that number 56 was the only Shay locomotive on the N&W system became more and more of a headache, as standard parts and maintenance practices did not apply to her. The engine shop crews had to break away from their usual workflow to service or repair the engine. In 1915, after 8 years of working all over the system, the Norfolk and Western Railway determined that they no longer needed the Shay, and sold her to the Birmingham Rail and Locomotive Company, a railroad equipment dealer. She sat idle in Alabama until 1917, when she was sold to the El Paso and Southwestern Railroad, becoming their number 99. She remained there for 2 years before being resold and sold again to dealers and operators in Seattle and San Francisco, before she finally went to the Red River Lumber Company in Westwood, California, near the shores of Lake Almoner, in 1920. She was converted to oil firing during her time on the West Coast. Retaining the number 99, she was with Red River Lumber the longest of any of her owners. She was said to be the best locomotive on the company's roster until the acquisition of a box-cab diesel locomotive in 1926. Number 99 remained in on-again, off-again service until she was retired and cut up for scrap metal in 1934. When one thinks of the Norfolk and Western, the images of mammoth Y6 and A-class steam locomotives often come to mind. What came before, however, is often forgotten. Shay locomotives are almost ubiquitously associated with logging operations, but many worked coal branches as the number 56 did. They were not speed demons, but for certain jobs, you couldn't beat them. As for number 56 herself, the modern rail buff may raise an eyebrow at the mention of a Shay on the Norfolk and Western. The idea of a Shay trundling along while being overtaken by an A-class going 70 miles per hour seems incongruous, because it is. Number 56 came to the Norfolk and Western in a very different time, and left before most of the classes of engine we know today were even a thought. The Shay was excellent at what she was meant to do. As progress shaped the N&W, however, she found herself with no clear purpose. Time showed that for the N&W, the way forward was not the Shay, but the Mallet. Still, whether as a curiosity or just a unique footnote in railroad history, it's still worth remembering number 56, the Norfolk and Western's 4-truck Shay.